This is part 1 for Chapter 5. Chapter 5 deals with the concept of customer lifetime value. And the purpose of customer lifetime value is to understand the benefit of loyal customers. But it's also to talk about how companies can assess value from a customer's perspective and hopefully predict some future value from those customers. So consider for a second the Pokemon brand. You may or may not have grown up with Pokemon cards and playing the game. I didn't personally. It was more something that I knew about but never took part in. My younger brother, who's 8 years younger than I am, he and all of his friends all had Pokemon cards and they would play it all the time. So the interesting thing for me, and maybe for some of you also, will be to think about the Pokemon brand in terms of its longevity, but also the value of its customers over a lifetime. If you do a Google search and look for information on Pokemon, you'll be able to see different types of products that they have initiated over the years, even since the original Pokemon brand. So besides the cards, there's movies, TV shows, cartoons, mostly apps and games online, and all kinds of other things. Most recently, Pokemon Go was launched in I guess it was the summer of 2016, and it was an instant success. The site crashed because everyone was downloading it. There was a lot of hype about it. And this was really initiated by people who felt really nostalgic about the brand. And then it became a very kind of addictive real world engagement and social connection. But I think it's a good example to look at the history of a brand and the importance that those valued customers had who initially or immediately were attracted back to the Pokemon brand when they came out with their Pokemon Go. So the things that we'll talk about in Chapter 5 deal with customer value, which becomes customer loyalty, satisfaction, and how we can understand ways in which companies deliver these things to customers. We'll describe and analyze the lifetime value of customers and how marketers can maximize it, and then discuss how companies can attract and retain the right customers. And the goal is to cultivate strong customer relationships. And throughout this chapter, or throughout this lecture, I'm going to bring in a lot of different companies and brands, mostly just in an attempt to pique your interest in some way, shape, or form. Some brands and products are interesting to some students and not to others, so that's the only reason. But a company and a brand like Coca-Cola, who has a history dating back to the 1800s, clearly they don't have any customers from the 1800s that are still alive today, but it's important to them to capture customers at a fairly young age and retain them as loyal Coca-Cola customers for as long as they can. And customer loyalty in this sense is one of the most important facets because the cola industry is very competitive and switching costs are very low for someone. There's not a lot of risk in buying a different soft drink. So maintaining a certain level of retention of customers is key for market share and profitability. So one of the things to kind of talk about early on is this kind of flip-flop in the way organizations view customers as part of their organization and the philosophy. So the one here on the left, this traditional organizational chart, represents what it would look like if managers mostly view the customer as a profit center. So you have the management up top and the people in the middle, the salespeople, anyone else who has contact with customers, and customers are viewed then as what we would say the profit center, right? And this is really more of an obsolete model now, as you should have realized from the beginning of this class, and probably your other marketing classes as well. Successful companies today sort of take a flip on this chart and invert it, and it looks like this one. So customers are actually at the top, right? And everything then the frontline people do, then middle management, and then top management, and decisions that are made along the way are based on customers being at the top. So they're the most important piece of this framework. So the frontline people here, they work to serve the customers and meet their needs and satisfy them. And then middle management job is then to support the frontline people to be able to do those things for the customers and so on. So let's talk about customer perceived value, or CPV. Customer perceived value is the perceived monetary value of the bundle of economic, functional, and psychological benefits customers expect they will get from a particular market offering because of whatever that product, service, and people and image is, or what they believe it is. The total customer cost is the perceived bundle of costs that customers would expect to incur when they evaluate a product, obtain a product, use a product, and dispose of it. And I'm using product in a general sense, market offering, you could say. And these things would include time, the money itself that is paid, energy it may take to maybe go from one place to another, or energy in acquiring it. I mean, if you think about Black Friday and all the great deals you can get, it's awesome, but I think sometimes you have to expend quite a lot of energy to actually obtain that product. And psychological costs. That kind of goes to Black Friday too, if you think about it. So successful marketers are ones who are able to really cultivate customer satisfaction and loyalty. So how do we determine customer perceived value, or CPV? We can think about it in terms of like a mathematical equation. And really what you're looking for is that equation to come out being positive rather than negative in terms of benefits. So if you think about the total customer benefits, and this is just some of them, right? Product, the service benefit, whatever, and all the things that would come from that product. And you compare that to the total customer cost, whether that's money, time, energy, or the psychological cost. Customer perceived value would be the difference between these two. So you want to have the benefits outweigh the cost. I mean, that seems pretty obvious. But sometimes what we're really talking about is perceived value compared to alternatives. Customers and consumers tend to be what we call maximizers, or at least what they think will maximize, be the maximum decision. So customers typically choose offers they believe will deliver the highest value and act on it. So not only do they look for total customer benefits to outweigh the cost, but if you think about perhaps two competing products or services, they will look and choose the one that would maximize, or most likely they'll live up to expectations, right? Most likely satisfy them in making a choice between two potentially close alternatives. If you're not familiar with these games, switch this out for Coke here and Pepsi over here, or I don't know, Toyota over here and Honda over here. So let's pretend we have the same setup, right? We'd have total customer benefit, total customer cost, total customer benefit for Candy Crush, and total customer cost for Candy Crush. So if you list all the benefits and all the costs for each of those, whichever one of these has the highest benefit over cost should predict which of these two alternatives someone would choose in terms of you have an hour to spend. What are you going to do with that hour? So that's hypothetically, because consumers are maximizers, how this would shake out. So whether the offer lives up to those expectations of what Pokemon Go would promise and what Candy Crush would promise in an app or a experience or a way to spend your hour, affects consumer satisfaction. And satisfaction is key because it helps predict the probability of whether or not consumers will purchase or play that game again, and that's loyalty. And all brands and products and companies need customer loyalty, because customer loyalty is a major part of customer lifetime value. Now, how can we conduct a customer value analysis? And what we're referring to is, what should the company know and what should the company do in order to conduct customer value analysis? And that is thinking about and trying to understand, what is it that customers actually do value and how are we doing based on those things? So there are 5 major things that a company can do. One is to identify what attributes and benefits customers value. What is it? What are the things that they really want to get out of the use of a product or a service? The second is to assess quantitatively the importance of those attributes and benefits, because you may find that there's 3 main benefits customers look for. Maybe let's talk about soft drinks. Maybe one of them is they want a soft drink that is not too fizzy. They want one that has not too many calories, and then they want one that comes in a certain type of can. But maybe they value those attributes differently. One is really, really important, the can, because they need it to fit in their cup holder. And how fizzy it is kind of like, they'd be willing to overcome that with some other things. So you'd want to assess the importance of those things. The next thing would be to assess the company and their competitors' performance on different customer values against how customers rate their importance. And you may find that maybe Coca-Cola is doing really great on them, but Pepsi is not, or maybe vice versa. And that will indicate how well one or the other probably would be doing. The next step would be to examine how customers in a specific segment rate performance against competitors. So this is important because, as you know, a major part of marketing is segmentation and targeting. Now, different segments of the market can want different things and value different things. And sometimes one segment is more important than another, or more valuable than another. And the company may need to choose which one are we really concerned about satisfying the most. Maybe it's the most profitable segment. Maybe it's the largest segment. Maybe it's the segment of people who are kind of new customers and you want to focus on retention. The 5th thing would be to monitor customer values over time. And that's because customer values do change. They change as the economy changes. They change as technology changes. And they change as different features in the product may change. If you think about your computer you had 10 years ago, it's probably very different than the one you have now. And what you valued then is probably very different than what you value now in terms of what that computer or what your cell phone can do for you. Even something like a soft drink. What people value in the beverages they consume is very different now than a decade or 2 decades ago. People are very focused on health and wellness, and maybe ingredients of food and beverages. And these may be values that weren't even really on the radar several decades ago. And then decide as a company, what are all those things worth to you? And can or should you make changes? So this example that I'll show you in a second was something that I did in class with my face-to-face students. And you're probably familiar with the Microsoft Surface Pro and probably also familiar with MacBooks. And there was a series of advertisements that was done mostly by Microsoft where they compared themselves to the MacBook and said, we can do all these things. And the MacBook came back and said, well, we can do all these things. In any case, very competitive based ad campaigns. So what you were seeing in a lot of those was the value proposition. Okay, so here's this word again, the value proposition that the company was setting forth, saying, this is what we will do for you. Now, in specific terms, the value proposition is all of the benefits, not necessarily that the customer will get, it's actually all of the benefits the company promises to deliver. All the benefits the company promises to deliver. Now, what I did in my face-to-face class is I sent them a survey and I asked them some questions. I'll come back to this picture in a second. So thinking about the features and benefits and how to assess customer values and then compare to competition, I sent them a survey and there was a question that said, how important is it that your laptop or tablet, I think is what it really said, laptop or tablet, has the following features? And these were the things that they were rating. And the rating scale was from 1 to 5. So 1 was not at all, I think. I'll have to look at the results. I can't remember. Either 1 was not important and 5 was very important, or vice versa. So from this was, these were the results. So yeah, actually the lower end, the 1 was a very important, and a 5 was actually not at all important. So what you can see here is that the most important features or attributes that the students wanted were a long battery life was the number 1. Right here has the lowest score, which meant the most important. A 1.37 out of 5. So long battery life and fast processing speed. You got to figure students are doing a lot of things at once. And then the next one is a lot of internal storage. Okay, they want to be able to keep all their files and so forth. The least important was a rear-facing camera. So it's pretty close to 5. So this gives us an assessment of what are the things our customers may value. What are the benefits and attributes that they want and need? Now, what I had done was, let's go back, I had then shown them basically this exact picture, okay, with a drop down of a couple of the features and benefits, or I'm sorry, excuse me, a couple of the specs for the MacBook Air, and then the comparable specs to the Surface Pro. And I don't have that here for you, but based on what they were shown, they were asked which of the laptops is more appealing based on the same features, right? And these are maybe mixed up in terms of order, but they're the same features. And they were asked which one seems better, or are they equally attractive? And this is what they said. So the Surface Pro, based on the specs they were shown in that ad, was that the Surface Pro had a higher resolution screen. And if I were to go back and find it and show it to you, they actually had a comparison and showed that the resolution screen was better in the Surface Pro. Now, the processing speed, people either thought it was the Surface or that they were equally attractive. And these two, the front-facing camera and the rear-facing camera, were equally attractive. The battery life, though, on the MacBook Air seems to really outweigh the Surface Pro. So what this is actually a count. 18 students, this is a number of students, 18 students said the MacBook Air seems to be most appealing in terms of battery life. Now I point this out now because remember, if we go back, the battery life was the most important thing that students wanted in a laptop or tablet. So if you find that that's the most important thing that customers may value, and then you find that they think the MacBook Air delivers that the best, chances are, even though Surface Pro may, beat out the MacBook on some of these other things, they may base their choice solely on that, or that carrying the most weight in the decision. So that's the end of part 1.